Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We'll be right back with today's guest, but as always, we want to give a shout out to our sponsors. Now, don't hit that fast forward button. These are all companies that I used as an athletic director, and I highly recommend that you use them too. So take the next 3 minutes, listen to our sponsorship shout outs, then listen to our interview, and then go visit these sponsors. I'm telling you, you're going to be glad you did. Here we go. I want to say thanks to Hometown Ticketing, the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. Go to hometownticketing.com. It's digital ticketing that offers more. We also want to say thanks to our good friends at Huddle. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but when I became an athletic director, I made sure that our school was a Huddle school because I wanted a platform that was going to work for everybody, and Huddle came through like a champ. Go to huddle.com, join the 8 million users. Turn your school into a Huddle school. We also want to say thanks to Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and schedule a live web demo to see their score tables and their score boards in action. Probably the best purchase I ever made was our Sideline Interactive indoor score table. Go to sidelineinteractive.com to get more information. We also want to say thanks to Snap Raise. If you're looking for a fundraising platform, stop. You found it. Go to snapraise.com. Hands down, the best online fundraiser out there. We used it at our school, tremendous success. Our coaches loved it, our parents loved it because it works. Go to snapraise.com. You can check out their other great platforms. But if you're looking for a fundraiser, you found it. Go to snapraise.com. We'd also like to say thanks to Home Campus. Home Campus is a platform that you're going to use every single day. Things like scheduling, uploading scores, rosters, communicating with everyone in your program across the state. How about athletic clearance and eligibility? Who doesn't do that every day? Home Campus is going to do all these things and more. It's going to do them better. It's going to do it faster. It's going to give you a lot more time back in your schedule. To get started, all you have to do is go to homecampus.com. That's it, homecampus.com. We also want to thank Vital Signs Wall of Fame. If you're looking for a really cool way to display your school record boards for all the teams, for all the sports, or your school's Hall of Fame, go to Vital Signs Wall of Fame. Take a look at their interactive touchscreen video consoles. It's also a great way to showcase your school's diverse history and share your proudest moments. The website is vitalsignswalloffame.com. We also want to say thanks to our good friends at Ohio University and their online master's program. Go to ohio.edu/info/MAA to check out their affordable 20-month online masters that not only allows you to earn your master's degree, but you'll also complete 11 NIAAA leadership training courses. These can go towards your RAA or your CAA. You're also going to get connected to a nationwide graduate network. The website is ohio.edu/info/MAA. Check it out today. And we want to say thanks to Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. Athletic Surveys is going to connect you to your coaches, your student athletes, your parents in a way that you just can't do unless you're using a survey. ADs already hear from the complainers. They'll connect you to that group, but they're also going to connect you to the 98% that supports your program. And that information is tremendously valuable, especially when you're talking to a frustrated parent or your principal or even your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com. Let them help you take your athletic program from good to great. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We're staying right here in Florida today, and we're going to be visiting with Staci Hahn. Staci's the director of athletics at University High School. That's in Orange City, Florida. Longtime AD here in the state, and we're excited to have her on the show. Staci, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Well, you and I were talking. It's the end of the school year. It's still a busy time for ADs. We always like to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So give us that quick bio, where you were born, where you grew up. Maybe take us up through your own college days, and then we'll take a break. But what's the Staci Hahn origin story?
The Staci Hahn origin story. I was born and raised in Pennsylvania. I grew up quite a bit in central Pennsylvania, moved around a lot. My father was a minister, and so all over South Central Pennsylvania, 10 schools from kindergarten through 12th grade. I did not get to start participating in athletics until very late in the high school career. I was a track and field athlete, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, but my springboard actually was I was a football equipment manager. I had a friend who was a statistician, and she said, "Hey, why don't you do that with me?" Well, I inadvertently said equipment manager to the football coach, and that's a whole different realm than statistician. But that became the springboard. I was a collegiate athletic equipment manager for Indiana University of Pennsylvania, including a trip to the national championship for Division II, and the following year semifinals in Texas A&I Kingsville. So I happened to get sick when I was in college, and uh, the coach said, "Hey, why don't you learn the athletic training thing?" Because I wasn't allowed to be outside in the cold winters for a year, and he's like, "Learn the athletic training." So I started that and really enjoyed athletic training, and finished my bachelor's degree and two minors in 3.5 years while being an equipment manager and a student athletic trainer. And that was my springboard. I went on to graduate school at the same school, and a school was naive enough to give a 22-year-old an opportunity of being an ATC and an AD. Muncie, Pennsylvania. And at 22, my first job out of graduate school was an AD and ATC, and just have been in it kind of ever since.
I want to hear about that, but I want to go back to your high school days as a longtime football coach and our ADs, that are former football coaches, maybe even any sport. I think particularly football, they know the value of a manager. So going back to those days, that first day on the job, maybe that first week, what are some memories of that? Because we treated our managers as they deserve to be, as MVPs.
It was certainly quite the learning experience. That was back when you still had air bladders and helmets,
Oh yeah.
and straps. I could change a strap and the four clips in under 30 seconds, which is, for when you're talking about the timing of a play, you can get that changed out and the snap replaced in under 30 seconds. You get them back, you're only losing them for a play. So that was a valuable asset. Um, it was interesting. I was in the boys' locker room. We actually had a French door. So instead of keeping the bottom shut and the top open, we reversed it. We kept the top closed and the bottom open so that I didn't necessarily see everything, but we could still communicate. But I learned it played to my organizational strengths. I, the guys loved it. They treated me. It's funny. They treated me like one of them, and yet at the same time, they were some of my fiercest defenders. And even in college, again, I was in the locker room. I was on the sideline, um, lifting, carrying, lugging, all of that good stuff. My first year in college, I was the period girl. The freshman got to stand on top of the stadium, no matter how windy or snowy it was, with the air horn
Oh
and
yeah.
these big wooden numbers. And we do, 30, 35 periods. And that was back when there was 3 days were still allowed. Um, and did periods and was the headphone girl. Frank Signetti Sr. Was the head coach that I worked for in college, and he and I were literally attached at the hip for 3 seasons, and it was a fabulous experience. I also got the opportunity to work with Chuck Clausing, who eventually went to the Naval Academy, but just a chance to see the world. But it was hard, long days, and back then, heat illness, while it existed, it didn't exist. It didn't exist. You were there all day, and lugging water and just all sorts of of crazy things, but I wouldn't trade it for the world.
I love the expression, and again, you're absolutely right. Attached to the hip, the headset, headphone person. You see it on TV all the time, watching college and pro games. There's that person right there by the head coach. Can you think of a moment? I'm going to guess there were probably several, where at the time it really didn't seem that like much. But now looking back with experience and wisdom and perspective, you can say, hey, that moment on the sideline, that was significant for me. Anything come to mind for you?
Um, I think of when we winning, we were at home. It was cold. It was November, and we earned the chance to go to the national championship. That was, you know, an unbelievable experience to get to do that in front of our home crowd and go to Dothan, Alabama, or not Dothan, Muscle Shoals, and the experience that was, private jets and hotels all to yourself and security everywhere. You didn't go anywhere where there wasn't a police car or whatever with you. Just an incredible experience. But I very much remember that experience. I remember going to New Haven, Connecticut, my first year. We won the road the second round, and being in New Haven, Connecticut, and first time I'd been on AstroTurf ever. I'd never even really seen it before, and you just you're playing in that stadium, and it was just pretty surreal.
Wow. I want to hear more about those experiences, particularly that first job you mentioned as a athletic director, athletic trainer. But let's go and take a quick break. For our listeners, we're visiting today with Staci Hahn. She is the director of athletics at University High School. That's right here in Florida in Orange City. So let's take that break, but we're coming back. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to say thanks to our good friends at Hometown Ticketing, the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. Go to hometownticketing.com. It's digital ticketing at a new level. Hometownticketing.com. We also want to say thanks to Gipper. Go to Gipper.com. Start creating world-class marketing content for your school's social media channel. It's incredibly easy to do. In fact, I like to say it's so easy, even I can do it. Gipper's used and trusted by over 4,000 high school and college programs across the country. It's professional graphic design for your high school teams. Go to Gipper.com for more information. Welcome back, everybody, to the Educational AD Podcast. Staci, you mentioned that, and again, these are your words, certainly not mine. Somebody was foolish enough to give a recent grad that position, athletic director and athletic trainer. Those are two full-time jobs. I cannot imagine doing both. What was that like? Right out of the college, right out of the chute, welcome to the real world. What was that like?
It occurred, quite honestly, by mistake, kind of like the situation of getting into equipment managing was a mistake that turned out well. I applied for what I thought was a full-time athletic training position. And a day before the interview, realized it was for a dual position. And I went anyways, even though I'm like, I have a master's degree in sports science, but my emphasis was clearly on athletic training. But when they interviewed and they talked me through it, I'd had enough different types of sport experience as an athletic trainer and as an equipment manager, and enough just experience. They're like, you know the rules, you know what's going on. We can teach you some of those other things that you need to know. And that was 1999. And I think, I walked into most rooms at that point, and I was one of the only female ADs. Very often was the only female AD at that point. It's been great to see certainly an increase in females. Now I'm certainly not that only voice, but back then certainly was. Spent 4 years being the AD and ATC. I lived 2 blocks from the school. I could walk to school, which made it really nice. I was single, didn't have a family yet, and you know, poured pour your life into that, and I loved it. Loved the kids. it was quite nice. But then when you meet someone, and of all things, he was an umpire, and we decided to get together, and we got married and moved to Florida. And I got out of athletics and education entirely for about 2.5 years right after we got married, and I had my first child. And a chance encounter with a student who came to my door selling me magazines of all things. I remember that day very well. And I'm like, I miss this. I have to go back. And I met with the county AD of Orange County at that point. And I'm like, what do I need to do? Pennsylvania, you don't need a teaching degree to be an athletic director. Uh, uh, but in Florida, she's like, all roads to an athletic director really in this state go through a classroom. So I went back to school. I got hired as a reading teacher. Again, somebody took a chance on me. And my principal got tapped to open University High School. He had no idea what my background was. And I just started asking him some questions. And he's like, why do you know to ask these questions? I'm like, well, in my former life, before I was a teacher, I was an AD, and he tapped me to open as part of the cadre team, University High School. So,
I
uh,
definitely want to hear about that. Starting a school is very much a unique experience, but going back to that very first job, you thought you were applying for a training job, athletic training. What were some things once you got into the school and once you got into the job, what were some things that kind of surprised you? Well, geez, the AD has to do this. And what were some things that you felt through your background that, hey, not to be cocky, but hey, I got this. Okay.
one of them was record keeping. As an athlete trainer, you have to be meticulous with details and record keeping, from injury evaluations to treatment logs to medication logs. You have to be meticulous. And that organizational aspect and meticulousness really paid off in the AD realm. Um, you have to be organized, and I kind of knew by that point what organizational methods worked for me and utilize them. And in fact, my game calendar is still the very same format that it was 25 years ago when I first started in this realm. I want a particular kind of calendar with a particular setup, and it looks the same as it did then. But that was really helpful. Dealing with parents, I'd worked with parents and injuries. I was used to, however, working with parents when I was the good guy. I was the one coming in. I was holding their kid's hand when they got hurt and through rehab and return to play. And so I was used to working with parents when they weren't necessarily mad at me or angry with me. Being in the AD realm, and now I have to be the bad guy sometimes, and I have to say no, or I have to rule your student ineligible. And so learning to work with parents on the flip side, where they're want to cuss you out or they're blaming you for whatever bad thing that is happening. And one of the very first lessons that I learned, and has served me well throughout my entire career, I was sitting at home on a Thursday night. It was 10 o'clock at night, and I had a parent who called me at home, and he was literally cussing me out because I had suspended his kid for some illegal actions, and he had lied to us about it when he got back to school. And the next day, my principal's like, lesson number one, you cannot rationalize with irrational people. And so when you're dealing with parents or coaches or whomever it might be, when they're in an irrational state, it doesn't matter how much you talk, they're not ready to hear you. And so you might as well learn to take a step back, don't take it personally, and then go back at it another time.
Yeah, that I love that. You cannot rationalize with irrational people. Just that should be AD 101. Let's go and fast forward to opening up University High School. I'm sure you had some goals, some images, based on your own experiences and best practices. What were one or two of the things that you really felt strongly about that you wanted university schools athletic program to show?
So there's the same things that I want now and I share in interviews. One, I wanted to develop programs of class and excellence and integrity. I wanted coaches who it wasn't just about the winning, that I wanted coaches who supported the idea that we are educational based athletics, that we are preparing kids for the next level. We're not preparing kids for the NBA or the NFL. We're preparing them for workforce, for college, for military. And we need to build character, and that needs to be our first and foremost goal. I think that if you take care of the little things, the big things will take care of themselves and the winning will come. But if you don't take care of your character, you're not going to succeed. And so I was very fortunate that my principal allowed me to hire the entire staff. He trusted my judgment. I did the interviews, and I got to hire people that had the same kind of mindset, that wanted programs of class and integrity, of hospitality. We play hard between the lines. I don't want to be anyone's gimme game, but outside the lines, it shouldn't matter what zip code that child resides in. They ought to be afforded a great experience. And so when you come to university high school, I don't want you to be in a hostile environment. Outside the lines, we're going to be hospitable. What do you need? How can we help? When the whistle blows, now we play.
Well,
So
oh, go
that
ahead.
was a big thing. That for me is still kind of the underlying foundation for me, and that loyalty and an entire staff that buys in. When you get to hire everyone, you're not inheriting other people's philosophies.
Yeah, and that's such a good point. In people talk in general terms, oh, you need to have a philosophy. And what's your philosophy of education? What's your philosophy of coaching? Um, when I'm hiring people, I'm letting them know, hey, this is our philosophy. This is how we roll. Now, I want you to bring something, exciting and maybe new, but I don't want you going rogue with, your own philosophy. This is our philosophy. And I think that gets, you know, uh, somehow
I want
forgotten
us
about.
all in the same bus.
Yeah.
I want, John Gordon's energy bus. I give a copy of that to all of my new coaches, and I'm like, we want you on the same bus. And I give the analogy: if we're all pulling in different directions and all going in different directions, we're not moving the bus forward. We're not moving our program forward. And so we all got to be sharing a similar philosophy if we want our programs to grow.
No, absolutely. Staci, we're going to do this at the end of the podcast, but if one of our listeners wanted to reach out, pick your brain a little bit more, find out how you do things at university, or simply add you to their network, what's the best way they can get a hold of you?
Email is probably the easiest and most reliable path, and that is SLHAHN at Volusia, VOLUSIA .K12.FL.US. But email is definitely the best way.
Okay. And we'll give that email address out again at the end of the podcast. And you can also find it on the NIAAA website for those of you that are members and go to the portal. Our guest again is Staci Hahn. She's the Director of Athletics at University High School in Orange City, Florida. We're going to take another break, but we're coming back with more. Please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to thank Sideline Interactive indoor score tables and video boards for their support of the podcast. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and you can schedule a live web demo to see their score tables and their score boards in action. Probably one of the best purchases I ever made was our Sideline Interactive indoor score table. It not only generated income for our department, but it also helped create the ultimate game day experience for our student athletes. That's sidelineinteractive.com. We also want to say thanks to our good friends at Huddle. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but when I became an athletic director, I wanted a platform that was going to support all of our teams, and Huddle came through like a champ. Our coaches loved it, our student athletes, even our parents loved the tools that Huddle provided that made our program appear world class. Go to huddle.com, join the 8 million users, turn your school into a Huddle school. We also want to say thanks to Snap Raise. If you're looking for a new fundraising platform, you can stop because you found it. Go to snapraise.com. Hands down, the best online fundraiser out there. We used it at our school with tremendous success because it worked. Go to snapraise.com. You can check out their other great platforms, but if you're looking for a fundraiser, you found it. Go to snapraise.com. We also want to say thanks to Home Campus. Home Campus is a platform that you're going to use every single day for things like scheduling, uploading scores. How about student athlete eligibility and clearance? Who doesn't do that every day? Home Campus does all of these things, does them better, does it faster. It's going to give you a lot more time back in your schedule. Go to homecampus.com for more information. That's it, homecampus.com. Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the Educational AD Podcast. Staci, we get a lot of new ADs, first year ADs, younger ADs that listen. And I think it's important for them to hear about the journey that we all take with our state association and with our national organization. So if you could, share your journey. You were in Pennsylvania and then you came to Florida. How'd you get involved with FIAAA and, with NIAAA?
It started indeed in Pennsylvania. One of my first principals was a former athletic director, and he's like, "You need to go to the state conference." At that point, it was Posada, in Pennsylvania, and I happened to take probably what would be LTI 501 back in 2000 March of 2000, at the first Posada conference that I went to, and Holly Farnese taught that course, and she talked to me. She was, again, not many women. Her and Peg Pennypacker were two of my first female mentors, and encouraged me to stay in the game and to get involved with Posada. And so when I moved to Florida, and went into this position, it seemed like a natural thing. I'm going to continue my education. I had taken several courses in Pennsylvania. By that point, they had all been kind of retired courses, and I needed to start over again. But very much, the idea, one of my mentors was Kaizen, continuous improvement. If you're not moving forward, you're falling behind. You're never stagnant. And so taking courses is how I kind of started getting involved, try to go to conferences, FACA, FIAAA. I went to my first NIAAA this past December. Had a wonderful experience. It was nice. It was close to home. I could afford it. I'm for myself. I tend to pay for my coursework and my conferences out of pocket so that I don't take the money from my kids, and we don't have that much funding to start with. So I want to make sure it's all going there, but also see the need for that. Uh, I'd like to eventually be able to get into some other leadership positions within FIAAA. Became a faculty member and taught an LTI class for the first time this past conference. So I'm hoping to be able to continue that as well, and earned my CAA in May. Um, I think I have my coursework for my CMAA as well. I just need to do my project now.
Now, as a longtime member of the National Certification Committee, I wouldn't be doing my job, if you will, if I didn't ask you, what have you thought about for your CMAA project? Anything in the back of your mind?
Well, something I heard a spiel last week, a sales call, and I'm like, I wonder if I can recreate some of this, but like a coaching education um, portfolio with either videos or resources that become a systematic way of educating my coaches. I do professional development with them. I've done 3D coaching with them. I've done some other things, John Gordon work with them, but a little bit more nuts and bolts practicality, looking at 14 legal duties. I do newsletters with them, but how can we maybe put those things into practice, and what does that realistically look for on a day-to-day basis for you as a coach? That's one of the things. I've not really talked out any projects with anyone to see what might get approved or not approved.
Well, as I've shared for a long time, and here in Florida, our certification coordinator is Dan Talbot of Polk County, a great friend. And if you're listening from another state, you have a certification coordinator in your state. Reach out to them for suggestions or help. If for some reason you can't get a hold of them, or even after you listen to them, call me up. I still do this all the time. Here's the advice I give people. The best project is the one that means the most to you. You're already doing something, I guarantee you, at your school with kids, with coaches, with parents, with facilities. You're doing something that would make a great CMAA project. So think about what calls to you, what speaks to you, then talk to your certification coordinator, and they can help you, or I can help you put that together. So let's go and take a break. Once again, our guest today is Staci Hahn. She's the Director of Athletics at University High in Orange City, Florida, also a certified athletic administrator. Let's take that break, but we'll be back. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to say thank you to Vital Signs Wall of Fame for their support of the podcast. If you're looking for a really cool way to show off your school record boards or your school's Hall of Fame, go to Vital Signs Wall of Fame and take a look at their interactive touch screen. That's right, touch screen video consoles. It's also a great way to tell your school's unique history and share your proudest moments. The website is vitalsignswalloffame.com. That's vitalsignswalloffame.com. We want to say thanks to the Ohio University Online Masters in Athletic Administration. This is an affordable 20-month, totally online master's program that focuses exclusively on interscholastic athletic administration. And when you're done, you're not only going to have your master's degree, you're going to have 11 NIAAA leadership training courses that can go towards your RAA or CAA certifications. To get started, all you have to do is go to ohio.edu/info/MAA, the Ohio University Online Masters. Check it out today. Welcome back to the Educational AD Podcast. Staci, one of the things we try to do with the podcast is this idea of sharing best practices. So I'm going to put you on the spot. What are some things that you do at university? And again, you are their founding athletic director. What are some things that you do that you're particularly proud of that you can share with our listeners?
I think the first is probably we have Captain's Council, where I meet monthly with a group of students. I take a cohort each year, and work through leadership development. It's also almost like an SGA, where I get them to be my sounding board, give me ideas for what needs improvement, what needs tweaked, give me suggestions, or I'll take issues to them and say, okay, we need to tackle this issue. So it's kind of got two parts to it. So I'm real happy with that. I've used Tim Elmore's Habitudes for many years with those students as the part of the leadership, and then do branch offs of that. So real proud of that work. Kids enjoy being part of that. We also have a study table. I think that my kids know I am about academics first, and my coaches know I'm about academics first. We are a school. And so I want you doing well, and I want you giving 100%. What is your best may look different from student to student, but I want you succeeding. We have plenty of resources available here to get that one-on-one tutoring or to get help from certain teachers. And so I bring math is a huge issue for us, and Algebra 1 by far and away is what most kids have in eligibility and academic issues with at our school. And so getting someone that's specialized in that and someone who's specialized in ELA, reading, and organizational skills. And the lady that I have that works with me on that side teaches the college level SLS student learning strategies class. And so I've got two people that are specialized in the two weakest areas that my students have, and they work 3 days a week with kids. And so, you know, kids, I can lead them, and we try to give them as many different opportunities at lunchtime or after school on Saturdays. Now sometimes getting them to drink the water and actually show up and take advantage is a different story, but we are, even if it helps just one or two, that's one or two that weren't getting it before that are now getting across that stage with a diploma. So, we work in tandem with their teachers and the school-wide mission. So, and I guess maybe third for me that makes things go well is I call it my Friday work. My Friday is very outlined. I've got a little checklist. This email, this email, this email. The one goes to the officials for the following week, one goes to my visiting teams for the following week, one goes to my coaches administrators for the following week. Do all the social media for the following week. Do the emails to my AC and maintenance guys. Here's what's going on next week. Here's when I need AC. Here's when I need lights. One goes to the secretary in the front office. Here's what teacher coaches need coverage. And it's very methodical and a lot of copy paste, but very methodical so that everything gets covered and that I don't have, next week, oh, I didn't know you had this, or oh, I didn't get this paid, or oh, we don't have officials, or we don't have a bus, or whatever it might be. But make sure that everyone's on the same page. And that is what I cannot emphasize enough, how much that is what saves me from having mishaps on game day, on game days.
Well,
So
again, it comes back to some of those organizational details that I bet had their genesis back when you were that student manager in high school and college. Quick sidebar here. How you mentioned that you do all the hiring of your coaches. What percentage of your coaches, let's just say head coaches, what percentage of your head coaches also teach or work on campus? I'm guessing that you value that teacher coach position.
I do value it. It's getting harder and harder to get them. I would say in the head coaching realm, I'm probably about 50-50. I would say I'm probably about 70-30. I have several that are teachers, just not on my campus, that are teachers on other campuses and in other buildings within our school district. So they're still teachers, they're just not here. And then probably about 30% that are in the private sector of some sort. And I would say I'm probably about 60-40 an entire coaching staff. About 60% are in the school district in some capacity. Not always in a teacher, maybe a guidance counselor, maybe a campus advisor. Sorry, that you gotta love electricity savings and the automatic shut off if you don't
No,
move.
it's like we talked about it. It's a podcast, so we're all good.
So, but that I would say I'm about 60-40 with the overall coaching staff.
Well, that's still for a public school these days. That's pretty darn good. Obviously, you have some great support from your principal and your district administration for hiring teachers that can also coach and add to that total student experience. Yeah.
Yes, and I try to, the principals that I've worked with, try to make sure that they're aware of the benefits of having those teacher coaches on campus. Supervision, being able to communicate with the teachers, ready access to them, recruiting, I hate to use the word recruiting, but drawing kids into the program. They're much more available to build relationships that make kids want to come out for their for their sport.
Oh, no, absolutely. And recruiting's fine because we're recruiting our own kids. We're
Kids.
recruiting them from the hallways, the classrooms, the dining hall. No, great stuff. Staci, this has been really cool spending some time with you and getting to hear more about your program, but we're not done yet. We always wrap up with the athletic director's toolbox. So we're going to take our final break. But when we come back, I'm going to challenge you to send out a brand new athletic director. You know what that's like on their very first job, but I'm only going to let you put 3 items in the toolbox. So let's hear from Athletic Surveys, who sponsor this segment. When we come back, we're going to find out what Staci Hahn is going to put in her new athletic director toolbox. We'll be right back. We want to say thanks to Athletic Surveys for sponsoring the AD Toolbox segment of our podcast. Athletic Surveys is about connections. They're going to connect you to your coaches, your student athletes, your parents. They're going to connect you to a group you probably already hear from, the complainers, the ones that want to gripe about everything. But they're also going to connect you to the 98% of your stakeholders that support your program. And that information is tremendously valuable, especially when you're meeting with a frustrated parent or student athlete, or maybe even your principal or even your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey that lets you take the pulse of everybody in your program. athleticsurveys.com. Well, it's that time of the podcast. We've been visiting today with Staci Hahn. She's a certified athletic administrator and the director of athletics at University High School, and that's in Orange Park, Florida. Tremendous background in athletics, but right now I'm going to challenge her to send out a brand new athletic director on their very first job, but I'm only going to let her put 3 things in the toolbox. So, Staci, what 3 items are going to go into your new athletic director toolbox?
I think the number one thing would be finding an organizational plan that works for you. You know, you'll hear a lot of things thrown at you, how somebody does this, or you should do it this way. Find an organizational management program or method that works for you, whatever that might be. There are some of it that I'm still paper and pencil, and do it old school. Some of it that is online, and I let technology work for me. But find what works for you. Secondly, don't be afraid of the unconventional. I did not follow a conventional path to this role. I was not an athlete per se. I mean, I was a thrower in track, but I followed an unconventional path. I was an equipment manager and an athlete trainer. I was a female. I started at 22. I've never coached, other than when I need to fill in for my coaches who something happens. I didn't follow convention. Um, don't be afraid to be unconventional. If it works for you, find what works for you. Know what the end game is and what you need to accomplish, and figure out how best you're suited to get to that point. And finally, one of my mentors, the principal that opened this school, Dennis Neal, was very big in the idea of Kaizen, continuous improvement. Don't ever stop learning. Learn something new every day, whether it's, you know, figuring out how to make an Excel sheet do something that you want it to do, to a new program, read a book, a author, leadership training, whatever it might be, but find ways to continuously improve as a leader, and in some cases as the manager. Finding you have to do both of those things in this role. And it's easy to get tied up in the managerial. Don't forget the leadership, but learning how to get better and to stay up with the times. So those would be 3 things. And then I'd be remiss if I didn't put in there, over communicate. Over communicate. So you can't do it enough. I'd rather have my coaches get tired of seeing my name in their inbox, or officials or whomever, than have a screw up that affects kids.
Well, I love them all. Just going backwards, that over communication. One of my early bosses used that term a lot. You even talked about it, with your emails, the copy paste. Absolutely. Being organized, lifesaver. Again, you touched on that point several times during our interview today. Being a lifelong learner. And that idea of, don't be afraid to be unconventional. Great, great advice. Staci, one more time, if one of our listeners want to reach out, add you to their network, and listeners, I think you got a great resource here. What's the best way that they can get a hold of you?
School email is the best way. SLHAHN at Volusia, VOLUSIA .K12.FL.US. We also have, I try to put lots of resources on our school website, uhstitans.com, under the athletic pages. Have resources available there as well, and contact information.
Well, Staci, thanks again for taking some time to share with our listeners. All the best as the summer unfolds, and we'll look forward to seeing you this fall at a couple of different, FHSA and FIAAA events.
Sounds good. Thank you so much for having me today.
Oh, absolutely. Make sure you say hi to our mutual friend, Jen Lockram.
Will do. Will
For our
do.
listeners, we appreciate you tuning in. And just a reminder, we upload the Zoom recordings of all of our interviews to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. We do this just about every day, sharing stories and best practices, and we appreciate you coming back. We'll see you next time on the Educational AD Podcast.